In this video, we're going to be working on the jazz standard Blame It On My Youth, and we're going to do it with a backing track. Hey, it's Paul Tobey here from Jazzmentl.com. Thanks for joining me once again for another one of my tutorials. I really appreciate it. I think when it comes to a lot of the tutorials that you see on YouTube today, especially for advanced jazz piano, they work on a lot of theory, a lot of scales, a lot of chords, things like that. I like to work on tunes because try to remember that jazz is really all about playing music. In this video, we're going to work on Blame It On My Youth, which I believe is a great melody to work with. And we're going to do it along with the backing track. In other words, I'm going to walk you through the head section, how the piano player would approach the head. I've written out the entire thing note for note. We're going to go through that bar by bar, and then we're going to work a little bit on the solo section. So I've written out some left-hand voicings for an entire chorus of solo. A lot of piano players, when it comes to comping with the left hand and soloing with the right, don't exactly know which voicings to play in the left hand. So I've written out an entire chorus of left-hand voicings. All right, let's move into the other room where we've got the keyboard set up and the computer. We're gonna go through the entire arrangement, and then I'm gonna come back here to the grand piano, play it through with the chorus of solo, give you an idea of what it should sound like, and then I'm gonna post a link to the sheet music and the backing track that we're gonna use in this tutorial. So as we're looking at the first 8 bars, try to remember that most of these voicings are rootless voicings. Because we're playing with a backing track, bass and drums, the bass player is covering most of the roots. Now we have a few roots here and there. So let's play the first 8 bars and then we'll take a closer look at it. All right, there's a few chord voicings here that I'd like to point out. The first one is these 2 chords right here, where you've got C to the F sharp 13. Now that is a tritone sub. So typically when you're going from the 5/7 C to F minor, it's like that. But in this case, we're throwing in a tritone sub, which means the F sharp 13 has the same tritone as the C chord. So you play a simple C chord and then the tritone sub. What a great sound. And then this line cliche happens here, where you've got the sharp 5 to the 6, back to the sharp 5. And then the F minor 6, again, rootless voicing. We could put a root there, but the bass player is handling that. Nice chord there with the tritone in the left hand, the flat 9 and the 3rd in the right hand. Of course, we're speaking of this chord right here. And then we've got this cadence here. What we have is a whole tone above B flat. So we're going like a whole step. Let's just call it 1 step here above B flat. And then the B flat is the 5/7 of E flat, which is also the 5/7 of the next bar. So you've got cycle of fifths here. The only thing that's out of place is this C chord. And you can substitute chords whenever you feel you get a good sound from it. So all right, let's scroll down to the next 4 bars. So this is the B section, where you're starting on the 4th of the key, which is E flat. So we're starting on an A flat major 7th chord. Then of course it's going back to the top of the tune. So the things I want to point out here is this inner voice where you've got the F falling to become the third of the chord, and then the D, which is the ninth, falling to become the flat nine. A nice sound. So from the G minor, and then over here with the G7 sharp 9 flat 13 to the E. So this E is only a half step above the E flat. So we're thinking about that just in terms of bass movement. And of course, we're playing the E, the root in the left hand, but it's not far enough down. The bass player would be playing it an octave lower than that. And then from the G7 sharp 9 flat 13 chord, this is just a rich chord. In other words, what's its place here? And it doesn't really have a place other than it sounds good. And we've been talking about that a little bit in this arrangement. Then you've got an inner movement where you've got this note, which is the sharp 5 to the 6th of the chord. It's like an inner voice that's just creating some tension that needs resolving. So from the F minor 7, keep going. Now, here's an inner voice movement where it's going from the G natural here to the G flat or the F sharp. And that's just changing one note, which changes the quality of the chord. So from an F minor 11th to an F minor major 7th chord. And then some inner voices here. We've had that up here with the C7. So here, it's just the same thing as these last two, which is moving down a whole step. So what we're going to do now is just move on down to the second B because the A just repeats itself. And then we're down here with the last 8 bars of the head. So let's play that first. There is a few things I really like about that section. The first one is this, where we had this before, where it's going like from the 9th of the chord, flat 9. In this case, we're doing the same thing, except we're changing the top note just from an F to an F sharp. More tension. And the reason why we did that is because it emulates the melody. And then just some F minor chords. And then a half step above D flat. That's just for a little bit of tension. So from the F minor 7. And then the reason I like this chord here is because it keeps the inner movement going. So from the D7 chord, all of that downward movement, just going down in half steps, really nice. And then you've just got a simple turnaround. We've got 1, 6, 2 minor, 5, 7. So 6 minor, 2 minor, 5, 7. Now you can play a 7th chord here. It's completely up to you. Then what I decided to do was give you a good sense of left hand comping. Now, when you comp in the left hand for soloing, typically what you're going to do is avoid the roots, not play big chords like this. You're going to play more simple chords closer together, like clusters. And I've just put a few of my favorites in here, and I'm going to play just the left hand for this first A section of the solo, just to give you a sense of how the voicings go for each of those. Now, what I'm going to try and do is, rather than just play half notes, I'll do little rhythms here and there. The half notes that I've written are just to show you the chord voicings, but rhythm is also important. Not as much as if you were playing a faster pace, faster swing. In this particular case, it is sort of a slow ballad, so you can just play half notes. But what I'm going to show you is how you might approach a few rhythms with this. So let's play the first 8 bars. So you can see I took a few liberties with the rhythm. I even did a side step when we got up here to this chord. Just kind of did one of those little side steps, which helps with your improvisation, makes it sound a little more interesting. Now what I'm going to do is add a little bit of soloing to this. In terms of the chords themselves, what I would suggest is that you learn these voicings. There is no rhyme or reason except that they don't move around a lot. For example, you don't have an E, so for example, you don't start off on E flat here and then play F minor 7 way up here. Or go to G minor 7 and then play C7 way up here. You're not jumping all around too much. You're just kind of keeping really close. If you look at the top note here in this whole sequence, you've got a G, which is the highest note, going down to as low as it looks like an E natural. No, there's a D here from the start. So just the space between those two notes is how far these voicings move. So you want to keep them close together. Keep from jumping all around the place. Let's go and play it now with a little bit of soloing just to give you a sense of how it would sound. My thought process there for soloing is the left hand is filling in the spaces where the right hand isn't playing, but it's also helping with rhythm move the right hand along a little bit. So depending on what you're soloing, the left hand is just going to fall naturally into place where the right hand needs a little bit of help. So no matter what the solo you're playing in the right hand, the left hand is always doing something to accentuate what the right hand is doing rather than interfere with it. Just support it with chords and just make the right hand sound really good. So what we're going to do now is move over to the grand piano. I'm going to play the head as we talked about. We went through the entire thing. I pointed out a lot of the inner voices and the different chords, and then I'm going to play a chorus or two of solo to give you a sense of how that sounds as well. After I play it, then I'm going to come back, post a link to the sheet music and the backing track. You really want to practice with that backing track. Get your timing down. It's a good bass and drums part, and it'll really help you a lot. All right, let's move to the grand piano and see how it sounds. right, let's go ahead and post a link to the sheet music and the backing track that you heard in that recording. I'm going to post that link up here in the corner. So what's next for you? I would suggest that you take a look at this video, which works on Blame It On My Youth solo piano version. So it's a little bit different than what we did here today. You're going to love it.